Hello, this is Mart back again, and I'm here back again to talk about Jimmy Kimmel and how he's actually back on air. So, yeah, let's talk about that. So last week, it was reported that Jimmy Kimmel was going to be canceled, banned off the air because of a comment that he said during one of his shows. I believe it was the September 15th show, I want to say. And in that show, in that episode, during his opening monologue, he apparently said something that pissed off the whole MAGA coalition side of the Republican Party, political side, whatever. In the previous video where I discussed this about Jimmy Kimmel, I plainly said that I am not a fan of Jimmy Kimmel. I do not like him. I think he's basically a corporate shill. I find him to be extremely, extremely unfunny. I find him to be basically a blight on entertainment in general, not just comedy, and entertainment in general. I think he's one of the worst talk show hosts ever. I seriously do not like him. For those who know me, know that I cannot stand him. A large part of it does have to do with the fact of how he handled the whole Oscar fiasco. But even besides that, I just think he's one of the fakest, absolute fakest people in the industry. Despite that, I still felt that I needed to defend Jimmy Kimmel because I thought it was not right that he was being taken off the air. When I did that video, I discussed that part of the reason he was possibly being taken off the air had to do with the fact that Trump, at that point, had discussed in the past that he was maybe going to go after some of these talk show hosts because of X, Y, and Z reasons, and just stuff that, it was very petty reasons at the end of the day. That's what it came down to. Turns out, however, that I guess enough people canceled their Disney Plus subscriptions in response to that, and now they're bringing Jimmy Kimmel back. I believe he comes back next Tuesday. I could be wrong on that one, or maybe this Thursday. I forget the date right now, but he's coming back soon. And what are my thoughts on all this? Personally, I would still have Jimmy Kimmel off the air, but that's just because I don't like him. However, the reason he was booted off the air, I still think was a terrible, terrible reason. Because at the end of the day, I do not think what he said warranted him to be put off the air. What he said was basically, in my opinion, essentially was he stated an opinion that had been circulating a lot. He wasn't even the first person to have said this particular opinion. He basically said that the person who shot Charlie Kirk, hey, it's very likely that he may be MAGA or not, and the MAGA people, the MAGA group, is trying to use that as points to up their political agenda, so to speak. And here's the thing, a lot of people before and after Jimmy Kimmel have said that hey, this guy is probably MAGA because he came from a conservative household and he has pictures of himself with guns and all this stuff. So he wasn't the first person to espouse that. He also wasn't the first person to say hey, MAGA is gonna more than likely use this to up their political power or whatever. He wasn't the only person to say that. And then aside from that, he just made a few random jokes against Trump, which at this point is kind of expected. And I honestly did not think that was enough to warrant his cancellation. It wasn't like what Dowd said, where I think that was enough to get him canceled, if I'm being completely honest. Because I think what he said was actual hate speech. I think what he said was actually with the intention to incite violence. However, what Jimmy Kimmel said, it was just a dumb comment. So again, he was canceled for that dumb comment. I thought it was bad that he was canceled. I thought that was an impeachment. I'm not sure if I'm using that word wrong, but it was an impeachment on his freedom of speech. I think he's allowed to say his opinion, regardless if it's right or wrong. I think he should be allowed to say his opinion, and if it gets corrected, it gets corrected. That's neither here nor there. But still, I thought it was kind of a shame, and I guess I'm using that term kind of loosely given the fact I'm talking about Jimmy Kimmel, and I don't like Jimmy Kimmel, but I do think it was kind of a shame that he was booted or banned off the air for that comment. I mean, I just thought it was kind of ridiculous. There was some other stuff that came out afterwards where I kind of touched upon it on the video my previous video, but I touched upon it a little bit, but I didn't go full force into it because I hadn't researched it. But now that I'm seeing some of the stuff afterwards, I kind of want to discuss it, and that's the fact that, I forget his first name, but Carr, the guy who runs the FCC, he basically said, hey, you're going to do this my way or the highway type of situation. We could do this the easy way or the hard way. And saying comments like that basically puts into perspective what was really going on. For as much as I do not like Jimmy Kimmel, for as much as I think he's a unfunny, corporate shill of a human being, the fact that he is one of the, straight up, outside of the actual, predators like Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby, outside of the actual malicious, predatory individuals in Hollywood, like Weinstein, like Bill Cosby, like Diddy, for example, outside of those actual monsters, I genuinely think that Jimmy Kimmel is one of the worst things to happen in entertainment, period. By that same logic, however, I do not think he should have been banned. And what Carr said, how we could do this the easy way or the hard way, essentially states to us that, hey, either you say what we want you to say, or we're just going to ban you. And at that point, that's just a complete abomination towards what freedom of speech and freedom of the press are supposed to represent. Jimmy Kimmel, for as much as an idiot as he is, has every right to portray himself as an idiot by saying these dumb comments that, of course, are illogical, and he's allowed to say that to the masses. And again, we will respond accordingly. However, I do not think that the FCC, Carr, should have the power to just say, hey, we don't like that comment, so we're going to ban you. And the reason that this ban is even more outrageous, in my opinion, is because there's a merger coming up. I forget the companies that are involved right now in this merger, but there's a merger coming up, and the parent company of one of these merger companies, that parent company is the one that controls Jimmy Kimmel's show, Jimmy Kimmel Live. So their incentive to ban Jimmy Kimmel came directly from the fact that they want to buddy up to the FCC so that this merger could go through. And at that point, it's like, yeah, this is you're basically trying to censor somebody for their dumb opinion just so you could get business points. And I think that is absolutely disgusting. I do not like Jimmy Kimmel, but I do not think that censoring him in this matter is appropriate. I think it's absolutely disgusting. And I do think it's an abuse of power on the Trump administration. And again, the Trump administration, Trump specifically, he has said that he's going to try to go after other hosts. Seth Meyers, Jimmy Fallon. I think they're on the chopping block. If I'm not mistaken, I think John Oliver already got the boot for something similar a few months back. So it's one of those things like this is not the time to like go after this, and it's one of those things like, and I've seen some arguments as to why they should cancel Jimmy Kimmel, because of what he said is like hateful. Like, here's the thing, he was not saying anything hateful. Like, realistically speaking, if you really listen to within the context of what he was saying, he was not saying anything hateful. He was saying something dumb and something that could be easily proven because of what we know about Tyler Robinson now, but he wasn't saying anything hateful. He was just saying something dumb. And the only hateful thing to say that he truly said, and even then, it's not really hateful, it's just stupid and petty, is a joke that he said against Donald Trump. And again, that was just a stupid and petty joke. And it's more evident, it's even more evident at the fact that they wanted to censor Jimmy Kimmel because they basically said, hey, Jimmy Kimmel, in order for you to get back on air, what you need to do now is donate to Turning Point and do a public apology. Like, if that's not blackmail at that point, like, I don't know what it is. If that's not like some form of blackmail or some form of coercion, some form of, hey, again, easy way or the hard way type of situation, I don't know what is. I'll give Kimmel some credit, because I still think he's an idiot, but I'll give Jimmy Kimmel some credit. At least he did not back down to these false allegations that he should be paying up to get back in the good graces. I don't think he should go back to the good graces. We've seen with this current administration, especially with what's going on right now, that if you don't like what they're saying, they will cancel you. Simple as that. And I don't think, again, as much as I do not like Jimmy Kimmel, I think he is actually in the right to say whatever he wants to say. And I've heard other people say, hey, the left did this when Biden was in power, when Biden was president. The left did this. They censored us. Why can't we do the same thing back? It's not cancel culture. It's consequences culture or whatever. The thing I would say to that is the fact that, no, this is cancel culture in the worst way possible, because now you're actively censoring people who are opposing you. What was going on during the Biden administration, what was going on is that during that point, there was actual false information being spewed left, right, and center, whether it be about, January 6th was the big stuff, but still, even the Epstein files, for example. It's one of those things that there was just misinformation about the voting history and all that. Clear misinformation, to the point that Twitter had to do that label, like the fact check, so many times. Donald Trump got that so many times, to the point that, yes, they did very well ban Donald Trump off Twitter. We're not denying that. But that's because what he spewed on Twitter was hateful rhetoric. That's why. You can say whatever you want about his policies. You can say that his policies are helping the American government. You can say that his policies are not helping the American government. I'll keep those opinions to myself. But there's a difference between the actual policies versus what he's actually saying. If I'm being completely honest with you, this is my own personal opinion, but if I'm being completely honest with you, the way that Donald Trump portrays himself, the way that Donald Trump states about certain groups of people, I do think it is hateful a lot of times. I do think it is very much discriminatory a lot of times. The way he talks about people, basically belittling them and disregarding them, I think it's disgusting. I'm not gonna hide my feelings towards Trump. I do not like Trump either. I'm not gonna sit here and also say he's one of the best presidents. I do not. At most, I think he's a middle to bad president, like right there. If I'm being completely honest with you, if he just had the first term, I think he'd just be a completely average president. I think this second term, I think for me personally, I think he's going down. But that's a whole different conversation, which I'm not going to get into right now because I really don't care. But during the Biden administration, the reason why during the Biden administration so many conservatives were being censored is because what they were spewing was actual hate speech. What they were spewing was actual incitions. I'm not sure if that's even a word, but what their point was to actually incite violence. That's why we had January 6th. I'm going to put it out straight. The reason we had January 6th is because the right side, the people on the right, the GOP, the Republicans, denied the actual voting history, and they were trying to force the government. Again, it's an insurrection. They're trying to force the government into doing something that was not right at all. That's why we had January 6th. That alone is inciting violence. Not gonna lie. So, like, what Jimmy Kimmel said, yes, it's dumb, but it's not hateful, and it's not inciting violence. Unlike what happened during the Biden administration and Trump and everybody else during the right side during that time, where they were actively inciting violence, left, right, and center, no matter what. And it's something that they're still doing. However, now that they're in power, they're allowed to do with free reign. Okay? And honestly, to the point, it's one of those things, like, if you need more evidence that what Trump and the right were saying was just inappropriate, violent, disgusting, etc., hypocritical, racist, misogynistic, etc., 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 just point to the fact that they literally left Twitter and made their own social media, Truth Social. Like, that alone shows you how what they were saying is just so incorrect in so many ways, to the point that they literally left Twitter because they thought they were being censored, which no, you weren't being censored. And they went on another social media, they created their own social media platform to discuss whatever they want to discuss. Like, that alone shows how corrupt, I guess you could say, their speech was. Whereas what Jimmy Kimmel said, it's not corrupt. It's dumb. At best, it's dumb and petty. But it wasn't inciting violence. It wasn't hateful at all. It was just dumb and petty. It's not like what Mark Dowd said, where I do think that was hateful. Okay? And to be honest, again, on the right side, I forget what this guy's name is, but there's a guy who literally said recently on TV that, like, hey, we should just shoot all the homeless guys. I'm like, that's not inciting violence? Like, to the right, to people on the right, like, that's not inciting violence? That's not hateful towards a certain group of people? And that particular news reporter has a history of doing that, where he's repeatedly said something out of pocket, and repeatedly, time after time after time after time, he has to apologize. And let's be honest, those apologies aren't real. Okay? You guys want to talk about consequence culture? Because again, you guys are right. It's not cancel culture. It is consequence culture. I'll give you that. However, when the consequences are being used to silence those you oppose, that is not consequence culture. That is cancel culture. Jimmy Kimmel was a victim of cancel culture because he did not, whatever he said, did not align with what the current higher political power likes. Same thing with every other talk show host that they're coming after, whether it be Fallon, Oliver, anybody else, Myers. That's what's happening right now. The reason why it was different a few years back when Biden was president is because, again, what the right was spewing was hateful. So at that point, that was consequence culture. That wasn't cancel culture. That was consequence culture because what you're saying was clear misinformation and clear hateful and spitefulness. That, at that point, that is proper consequence culture. This is improper cancel culture. That's what I have to say to that. I mean, honestly, I think this whole situation is just disgusting. And the one other thing I'll say to this is, like, really? There's that many people who care about Jimmy Kimmel that want to, like, cancel their Disney Plus subscription to, like, save this guy? I guess every cockroach has his fans at one point, but yeah. In a weird, twisted way, I am happy that he has his show back. Again, personally, I wish he would just be off the air. But if he's off the air, I would want it to be either A, because he's, like, retiring, like, on his own accord, or B, because he's actually getting canceled for something that actually warrants being canceled. You know, like Ellen, for example, you know? Again, what he said does not warrant him being canceled at all. So, not gonna lie, there is a part of me that's actually happy that he has his show back. As much as I can't stand that worthless corporate show. I'm kind of happy that he has his show back, but yeah, that's basically my thoughts on it. It's Also, a lot of people want to bring Charlie Kirk into this. Just newsflash: Charlie Kirk would probably be opposed to this. Like, he was somebody who was very much a proponent of free speech, you know. So like, I think he'd actually be disgusted at the fact that the right is trying to use this as a political point to cancel somebody, you know, that they disagree with. Again, Charlie Kirk was somebody who actively, to quite literally to his dying breath, was trying to hear out the opposition and giving them a voice. Even if he disagreed with them, he was still trying to give them a voice. So I think he'd even disagree with this, if I'm being completely honest with you. That's basically for now. I just feel like this whole situation is messy, and I don't like it. I guess let's see how long before this video gets taken down, and yeah, that's basically it for now. Okay, so this is a quick follow-up to the previous portion of the video you just saw. So, I guess I was wrong on when Kimmel returns. He actually returns that Tuesday. So, I'm recording this on Thursday morning. I recorded the previous part of the video on Tuesday afternoon, thinking that he was going to come back a week later, or like, actually today, sometime between today, this Thursday, and a week later, on Tuesday, next week Tuesday. But no, he actually returns that Tuesday, so on the 23rd. And, you know, I saw his opening monologue. It's right there on YouTube already. You know, I hate to say this, but I have to give Kimmel credit. He actually has some semblance of a spine. As has been made evidently clear, I do not like Jimmy Kimmel at all. I find him to be completely unfunny. But again, as I've reiterated in the previous portion of this video and in the other video I've done for this, in regards to this, I do not think he should have been fired or banned or canceled because of the comments that he made. He has the right to make whatever comments he makes as long as they're not hate-filled or hateful speech, and as long as they're not completely misinformation. It's something that he even admits that wasn't his intention. He understood why people thought it was misinformation. That's actually one of the topics he touched upon. And he's like, hey, I wasn't trying to do misinformation. It basically boiled down to a kind of a badly timed joke, essentially, but he understands why people took it that way. Like, it's one of those things. He's not blind to the fact as to why people took it that way, but he just didn't realize it would be this kind of reaction where it will go to this extent that he will be banned. He also does touch upon, and as I discussed in the previous part of the video, but he also does touch upon about the fact how he was basically coerced, so to speak, into being shut out because of the current Paramount merger that's going on. Because of that merger, and he directly calls out Brandon Carr, that's the guy's name, Brandon Carr of the FCC. Now, granted, there was a kind of a skit there with De Niro, which, not gonna lie, that was pretty funny because of De Niro, not Kimmel, but because of De Niro, but besides the point. But he does, you know, that's good aside, he does call out on the fact both that this is basically censorship at its highest form, and the fact that this form of censorship was done because Paramount was trying to get into the good graces of the FCC for this merger. It's only because of the Disney Plus of it all, because so many people, again, unsubscribed from Disney Plus, that he was really brought back, because Disney Plus's tank really went down because so many people canceled their subscription because of the firing of Kimmel. Well, I mean, again, first off, I'm going to start off with saying that I'm kind of surprised that many people even care for Kimmel to do this, but at the same time, if it were me, I'm not sure personally, I don't know if I would cancel it, because I would like to. I don't have Disney Plus, by the way, but if I did have Disney Plus, I'm not sure if I would cancel it. But it's also one of those things that kind of goes beyond Kimmel at this point. It's one of those things. It goes to the fact that this is a clear attack on the freedom of speech and freedom of the press. That's what that is. And he comments on this. It's the fact that's one of the best things that we have in this country. That so many people in these other places like Russia and Iran and Iraq, they would be censored and maybe even more put into jail. Let's be honest, even more if they even consider making a joke against anybody. So the fact that we are now falling into this is really, really scary, honestly. Like, it's honestly unthinkable. And the fact that Kimmel, of all people, is probably going to be one of the new faces of this opposition, so to speak, it's kind of weird, in my opinion. It's like, damn, I have to support Kimmel now. Damn. But no, like, real talk, he's right. Like, this is not something we should be falling into. That's one, again, that is one of the best things that we have in this country. Like, he even made the joke, like, hey, if even the Germans are saying that we have better free speech than America right now, like, we got an issue, you know? Yeah, I mean, I actually really like his monologue, all things considered. I did see some people commenting on the fact, like, oh, when he was crying, it was probably fake tears. Like, it's like, no. That's one of the few good things about Jimmy Kimmel, is the fact that he is very open with his emotions. He is actually very vulnerable, and he will cry at a moment's notice. Like, you could drop a dime and he'll start crying. Like, he's that type of person. So that is one of the few good things about Kimmel, if I'm being completely honest and unbiased. And so I don't believe that when he was talking about Charlie Kirk and the death of this young man, that I don't believe that to have been like crocodile tears, to be fake tears. Him commenting on Erica Kirk and the fact that Erica Kirk forgave Tyler Robinson for killing her husband, like that was a very powerful moment. And maybe I could do a whole other video, like just reactions to Charlie Kirk's death afterwards or whatever. I mean, not that it really matters, because I'd really just be talking about that, about how Erica forgave Tyler. But he commented like how that was such a powerful moment, and that's the type of thing we should be striving to. I kind of forgot that Kimmel was a Christian. I think it's one of those things I've always kind of known in a bubble, but I don't really know how much, or like how led by his faith he is, if that makes sense. But I do like the fact that he is like saying like that's what we should strive to. That's like, if you're a Christian follower, if you're a follower of Christian values like I am, this is what we should strive to be. And yes, I agree with him. I wholeheartedly agree with him in that respect. I thought the way he addressed the situation in his monologue was actually very professional. It actually showed that he had some semblance of a spine at the end of the day. Not gonna lie, he gained some respect for me throughout this whole ordeal. Doesn't mean I have to like the guy, but he did gain some respect for me. And I also like the fact that he thanked people who were on the right side, the Republican Party, my bad, on the GOP, on the Republican Party. I even like how he brought attention to that. There are people on the Republican side who even they oppose this. I mean, yes, he had the gag with Ted Cruz, where initially it's like, I don't like Jimmy Kimmel, so I'm happy he got fired. But then he goes on to say, like, no, the reason this is bad, though, it doesn't matter. It goes beyond Jimmy Kimmel, and Ted Cruz has his opinions, and he said other people on the Republican side spoke out about this. Rand Paul was one that stood out to me. I think he said Candace Owens. I'm not sure. That part I'd have to look into it more. But yeah, like there are people on both sides that were like, what is going on? I feel like for the right side, the Republican side, it was kind of like a mix of, not to compare this to Charlie Kirk, to be honest with you, but in a sense, it's like, yes, the left side, they had their people who were like, hey, this is a terrible tragedy, regardless if I agree with him. But then you had the very vocal opposition, the minor but vocal opposition, who were like celebrating death. I think it's a similar situation here, where a lot of people were really thrown off by, all things considered, they were thrown off by his comments. Sorry, and by his ban. They're more thrown off by his ban. There's a lot of people who were thrown off by his ban. Granted, there was like a middle ground who were kind of indifferent to the situation, left or right. But then again, you have the vocal minority who were really ecstatic that he got banned, and they were calling this retribution for what Trump went during the Biden administration and this, that, and the other. That, at the end of the day, was a vocal minority. But keyword there is vocal. Keyword there is minority. Most people, by and large, either didn't really care left or right, if I'm being completely honest, or they were like, no, this is wrong. I don't like his comments. I don't support Kimmel at all, but this is still wrong. So that's what it kind of comes down to. The people who really oppose this were much more so a vocal minority, all things considered. But yeah, I mean, again, I did gain some respect for Kimmel throughout this ordeal. I still think he's spineless, but not as spineless as I originally thought. The fact that he could be one of the faces of this censorship battle, potentially, kind of has me scared, to be honest with you, because like he's not who I would trust. I would get like John Oliver or Jon Stewart, to be honest with you, to be the face of this, to be honest with you, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, he actually does talk about how the administration is actively going up and going to try to take down other talk show hosts, and that is scary. Like even Trump's comments, I'm gonna be honest, they're not presidential. They're not presidential. Like him actively cheering the active censorship of his opponents, that's not politically sound. And actually, to that point, he even shows a tweet about Brandon Carr from a few years back, where it shows that, hey, Brandon Carr was originally a logically thinking person. Like, hey, we cannot ban satire, we cannot ban comedy, because that's the beauty of comedy and satire. 3 years later, bro, what are you doing? Go figure. Again, you're just another show for the Trump administration. Have it your way. But yeah, I mean, the only other thing I'm going to say to that is release the Epstein files. Please, we've been waiting this forever. Trump, you said you were going to release the Epstein files, so I don't know, but why haven't you done it by now? Is it maybe because you're on it? I don't know. You tell me. Release it, and we'll know if you're on it or not, but that's besides the point. But yeah, the censorship thing, completely terrible. Happy, even though I'm never going to watch Jimmy Kimmel again for the foreseeable future, I'm happy he has a show back. For those 3 or 4 fans that he has, have fun watching his unfunny comedy sketches. And yeah, that's basically for now. Comment on your thoughts down below. Let me know. And that's basically it for now. This is Daniel Mart, signing off.